Hello to all of you from around the world. I want to welcome you again to another beautiful edition of Soulivity Today, broadcasting live from our studio right here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and we have an amazing show for you today. Today, I'm joined by two of the best in the business of giving advice about manifesting your best life today. Back with us, our author and co-founder of Joy Keepers Network, Halina Goldstein, and Sheila Applegate, the host of Consciously Awesome Living, airing at 12 noon on Wednesday. In fact, there's a new show going on today. Hello to both of you.
Hello, Brian. Halina.
It's so good that we're back together. Again, got a great topic. Listen, it's Wednesday, and you know what that means. Yes, it's another Wellness Wednesday where we talk about topics that keep us well in our mind, body, and soul. Today with Sheila and Halina, we're going to be talking about grief, but with a twist that will support you in really understanding what the grieving process is all about. Learning to expand our capacity to love in the present moment. The question for you might be, well, how do I do that? Well, the answer is simple. You add joy to it. Now, Halina, most people out here are probably scratching their heads as we're like putting joy and grief and all that together. So I guess my question for you and then Sheila is, how in the heck do how do we have joy during a time of grief? And then your answer would be?
Well, there are two ways to think of it. And one way I actually experienced just 2 weeks ago, where I met with a friend who lost her partner just a month ago. And she experiences both grief and joy. And the way we had a conversation about it, and I think we kind of landed on that when your heart breaks open, joy flows there too, not only grief. So that's one way that it just happens because you open up as part of your grief. And the other way is that you consciously, and that is a practice, choose to bring joy into the grief process, not to suppress it, not to change it, but as you said, Brian, to add to it.
I love that. I love that. Sheila, what about you? How in the heck would you bring? I mean, is it possible, number one, for this to happen, in your opinion?
I think joy during grief is not only possible, but it's natural. And I think that more of us include it than we may be talking about. When I look back throughout my life, in the times of death when I was a child and was going to funerals then, and then growing through it into adulthood, it's a time of reflecting, right? And we're reflecting on both the good, joyful memories, and then the grief pours in. And so it's, to me, grief is often this dance between joy and sadness that actually dance pretty well together. Because a lot of times it's like we're actually thinking of how much we love the person, or how much joy we had, how much we loved having them in our lives, and we're remembering the good times. And then that is followed by this chaser of, oh yeah, and they're not here with me in the physical world anymore. And then the sadness dances into that. So I think the entire process is naturally emotionally a combination of the two. And then when we go to the level of, joy is an essence that's always here and with us to support, like Halina just said, there's many other nuances that we'll talk about as we go through the show today.
Yeah, ladies, when I was thinking about this show today, I was thinking that we really aren't we aren't taught to grieve, and we don't have discussions about grieving, right? I mean, typically it's just kind of assumed. We have cultural norms and societal norms where, especially when someone transitions to the other side of the veil, I personally don't say, oh, they're gone, because they're not gone. They're just transformed, right? Energy never dies nor goes away. It just transforms, right, from one thing into another. And that's true for us. And, we have our rituals, right? Our doctrine, our dogma, and our rituals around death, right? That have been passed down through hundreds and hundreds of years. But that doesn't talk about grieving, right? Like the process of grieving, and especially those times like when I've had loved ones transition. My dad transitioned a couple of years ago, my grandmother before him, other people, loved ones, that joy always comes in there. And it's like, because you have happy moments, you have happy memories, you have these experiences that are there, that become part of that whole process. And you're like, oh, am I really supposed to be feeling this right now? I'm supposed to be sad, right? Because that's what we're told, right? We're told, oh, you're just supposed to be sad and miserable and melancholy, and that's it. And so I love the fact that both of you are opening the door, and widening the lens around not just what grieving is, but the beautiful complexity of grief and how we can learn from that. Halina, I think we've kind of cracked the door open a little bit with our viewers today, our listeners today, around joy, grieving. What does that look like? What has that looked like for you as you've gone through periods of grief?
That's a great question, because it looked very differently depending on where I was in my life. So I experienced a lot of grief in my life, especially the first 40. There was a lot of losses in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
And until I experienced a certain openness, I did mostly experience the heavy side of grief. And I remember that one of the big ahas I had was when my dear brother passed away at age 39, leaving 6 children. And
Wow.
and they lived in a different country, so I came there for the funeral, and everything went very fast. And I had so I was observing these children in ages, from 1 year to teenagers, and what I noticed, what really was a huge opener for me, eye opener, was that they didn't learn anything about joy and grief or tradition or anything like that. They were just moving through their process. And what I saw then was exactly the dance that Sheila referred to. So they would play and laugh and had great time. And then they would remember and grieve and cry and needed to be held. And then back and forth in the most natural way. And that was such a gift to see, because this is how we do it. And then I started opening more and more. And then as I was waking more and more to what I experienced as truth, joy flew more and more in, and grief became more and more mild. But it was good to see, just, without any explanations, this is what we do.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Halina. Sheila, when I was thinking about this show too, I was thinking about the fact that grieving isn't, and again, this is, I think, what society tells us. The grieving is only about when people pass away or people transition, right? But that's not grieving.
Mhm.
Grieving comes in a myriad of different flavors, different colors. It can be losing a job. It could be a relationship ending. It can be the passing of a loved one. It can be all different types of things. Do you agree with that as well?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you're talking about that, because I think that when we get used to grieving as part of our everyday natural process,
Yeah.
then it does make it easier when we grieve death. And so do so many other things, like continuing our communication, as you referred to. But one of the times I feel like in parenting, I had this wherewithal um, to remember to grieve the different stages of my children. Because when I think about it, I have a little Justin and a little
Wow.
Sarah out there that's living in my heart,
Wow.
and now I have these
Wow.
adults. And um, I really, the last few months before they grieved, or before they graduated from high school, I made each of them life book. So I was going through all of their photos and creating a book of their life, a photo album of their life from that phase. And in doing that, I just grieved. I grieved every aspect of them. And in that, I could have joy in their
Wow.
graduation, and the excitement of launching them into the world in their next phase. So yeah, I think the more we grieve and make it a natural part of our living, the easier the process is.
I'm glad that you brought up children, because this is a perfect example of how to experience joy during the grieving process, right? Because as our children get older, yes, they're not the same as they were when they were younger, and you may miss those kinds of times, but you're also excited about the future, right? For them,
Mhm.
it's like, wow, this is great. They're about to go to high school, or they're about to go to college, or they're about to go to preschool. I mean, we were celebrating our grandbaby going to preschool for the first
Oh my
time, right?
goodness.
You know what I
That
mean?
went
I mean,
quick.
and yeah, I know, right? And it's like the happiness kind of flows, and yeah, you may be grieving that you can't, like, that she's not a baby, and she's just, you're not holding her in your arms that way anymore. But it's a fabulous time.
Yeah.
Man, I'm loving this conversation so much. Listen, everybody, we're gonna take a quick break. We got more of Soulivity today coming up. We're talking about finding joy in grief today with Halina Goldstein and Sheila Applegate. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. So stay tuned. Soulivity today is brought to you by Assume control over your weight and broader health with the 80 Bites program by Physical Mind Institute.
For 50 years, we've been told, load up your plate with veggies. Load them up. Because all this spinach, look at it, all the spinach is only 100 calories. But avoid fat, because a tiny sliver of butter is also 100 calories. So spinach is good, butter is bad, right? But not today. Now we're told, put butter on everything, even in your coffee. Why? Because fat doesn't spike insulin, as carbs do. And stretching the stomach with all those veggies unbalances our digestive hormones. So eat healthy today means fat, fasting, stomach control, right here's the stomach. Forget calories. Hormones rule, and 80 Bites is the solution.
Are you ready to take that first step towards true, unwavering inner happiness? Are you like thousands of people who have everything they need, not want, but need, and still can't seem to find happiness and fulfillment in their lives? If so, the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, you will learn about the principles and practices that lead to true inner happiness. Because guess what? It isn't found in our external environment, but within ourselves instead. Together with my guests, we will explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices. And together, we'll advise you on the actionable steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. So I invite you to join me each week on Soulivity TV on the Steps to Happiness show with me, Teresa Greco.
Hello there. We're back here with more of Soulivity today. We're talking about, how to find joy during times of grief. We got some fantastic co-hosts talking about this. Halina Goldstein, a co-founder of the Joy Keepers Network, and Sheila Applegate, one of our Soulivity TV hosts of Consciously Awesome Living. We got to move to this next level of talking about finding joy in grief, and that is, I think people, as they're going through the experience of grief, again, we talked about this, I think, offline, where they do have moments of joy, but then they're wondering what the heck's going on with me, right? Because they're not supposed to feel joy during that time, and it becomes problematic for them. What would be, Halina, what would be your advice to them when that happens or when they experience that?
Well, the advice is, and it's a challenging advice, but it's perhaps the most important challenge we can give ourselves, and that is be true to yourself. Be true to your grief. When you grieve, be true to your joy. And I know it's not an easy thing, and it's a journey through life, but the beautiful thing that also happens when we grieve is that many of our defenses and protections, they dissolve. Pain does that for us. And it actually becomes easier to be yourself. Many people experience all of a sudden it's easier for them to ask for help. It's easier for them to express who they are. It's easier for them to express what they feel because everything is open. Even if it's bleeding too, it's open. So it's actually a good time to step stronger into the reality of who you are and what is true for you.
Wow. What would you say, Sheila? Yeah, what would you say, Sheila?
Well, Halina, I think all that you said was very beautiful. I feel that when we think about it being problematic, I think it is if we've been taught that being in joy means you are grieving or you didn't love the person. Fortunately, that's not how I was taught, but I can see where that would, some guilt would come in at that phase. Like, I'm not worthy. And I think it does have a lot to do with how you perceive what happens after death. I think that is going to change the process. Because if you believe that in some sort of afterlife, even if you believe that the energy shifts and they become part of nature and they're everywhere, that you believe that they reincarnate or that they're continuing to be with you and that you get to be connected to them in a different form, or all of those things, that opens a window for you to experience the grief in a different way, because that joy is so naturally in there as well. If you don't have any of those notions or haven't taken the time to think about it, I think you're now kind of also presented with an existential, question that comes up. So it's kind of convoluted when we're grieving. And then I think it's also a public thing, right? What do people perceive of me?
Right.
If I'm out here having a good time, are they going to think that I didn't love him, or something like that? And so I think the perception, the interaction with others, or the other thing is, if you're grieving with other people are in different phases of it or in each moment, right? So to be, making jokes to the family member of someone who died may be inappropriate, where the family member making it might feel easier, or just an
Right.
awareness of where the people are. And with that, I have
Y-
like a pretty extreme example.
Go for it.
They, when, I was one of the people who from SU who wasn't on Pan Am 103 over Lockerbie when it bombed. One of my friend's roommates was on the plane, and when they found her stuff, her watch was still, well, when they found her watch was still ticking, and it was the time of the Timex keeps ticking and ticking. So to her, like, and her roommates who loved her and knew the person, knew that she would have found it funny also, they they found relief in kind of the bizarreness of it and the joke of that. But if somebody else from the outside had said it, it would have been so offensive, right? And I think that's what I mean by like how we navigate other people. That was an extreme case, but everything
Yeah,
else is subtler.
but I think both of you are kind of like talking about this and bringing this forward, that grieving is probably one of the most important experiences that really brings forth the quote unquote messiness of life. I mean, we experience all these different things all the time, but when we're going through a grieving process, it's almost like we're diving into the multi-dimensionality of life, that you can both be sad and happy at the same time, right? Or experiencing things back to back, and it's okay, right? That's the spiritual and human experience kind of like coinciding at the same time. So I'm so happy that you guys are talking about the fact that, listen, when you grieve, there's going to be moments where you're feeling some joy, and then there's going to be moments where you're feeling some peace, and allow that to flow, especially the joy part. Allow that to flow, because that opens you up to experiencing the fullness of what the grieving process is trying to help you through, because it's really there to help, right? I mean, and I think that's what we're trying to say too, that it's really there to support you in growing and deepening awarenesses about yourself, awarenesses about your relationships with other people, and your relationships with your experiences as you move through your human experience. Wow, great conversation. Listen, we're going to take another quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking more about this. We're going to start making this turn towards, how joy specifically can support you as you move through the grieving, but also healing process, because there's some healing that's there as well. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes right here on Soulivity Today.
6 years ago, when I started Soulivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose, so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit Soulivity.com now.
Do you see me kneeling on this dual roller called Parasetter? It's actually comfortable because of this channel and the softness of the special foam. It feels like my kneecaps are being massaged. When I lie down, my spine is housed in this channel, while the convex rollers massage my muscles. They let go and lengthen. There's a traction effect from my head on the headrest and my mid-back from the rib wrap, which hugs me. When I start the breathing sequence, I feel calm because my cortisol levels are dropping. Lower cortisol means bye-bye constant hunger. Parasetter is 40 inches long. and much more comfortable than old-style rollers. But it weighs only 10 ounces. Parasetter, just like Pilates was, is no longer an insider secret. Do yourself a favor. Reset your parasympathetic nervous system. Defeat stress. Lying, sitting, kneeling, or standing. This unique patented roller helps everyone.
Now, after losing my 36-year-old cousin, a best friend, a dad, my mom, but also my marriage, losing my career, and at some point, losing my sense of self and the identity of the person that I came to know myself to be, I've become a student of grief. And what I want to share with you are some of the lessons that I've been learning along the way. So lesson number 1 is a shift in your mindset. If you change your mindset, you will change the way that we grieve. Now, there's 5 mindset shifts. Some of these might seem unorthodox and quite different than how society will dictate, but it's these shifts that have allowed me to find the possibility of joy in grief. So here goes. Mindset shift number 1 is the recognition that we don't only experience grief when we lose someone that we love. Understand that you can experience grief from any form of loss. Losing a job, losing a relationship, a dream left unfulfilled. It's going into retirement or taking a leave and then losing that sense of passion and purpose that you have in your work. Mindset number 2 is that joy and grace is possible despite the grief. So you don't have to feel guilty for feeling that joy. It does not mean that you love them or miss them any less. Mindset shift number 3 is the recognition that grief is a full body experience. There's a reason why you're so tired, why you might be having short-term memory loss, why you start having these phantom aches and pains and tightness and tension in the body, why you lose the stamina that you're so accustomed to. I learned that my grief likes to express itself through movement, which was not surprising because we know that our emotions are actually energy in motion. And so it wasn't uncommon to find me on Sunrise Beach here in South Florida. I got my AirPods in my ears, classical music playing, and me on the shoreline doing pirouettes and leaping into the air, doing twists and turns as if I was somehow classically trained ballerina, which for the record, I am not. And so I became this hysterical entertainment for the morning time joggers who must have been thinking, what is wrong with that lady? But it worked. Mindset number 4 is realizing that you don't have to be ashamed for your grief, nor do you have to apologize for it, regardless of how long it has been. Grief is a heart journey that is best traveled in community. There's something really powerful and very liberating being in community with people who are also on the journey and being able to share your story with people who actually care to listen. Mindset number 5 is realizing that grief actually does not have an expiration date. It's not a problem to be solved. It's not something for you to just get over. It's something that we learn to carry for the rest of our lives. So expect and accept that it will come in waves. And as John Kabat-Zinn says, while we can't stop the waves, we can certainly learn to surf.
We can certainly learn to surf. Wow. Hello there. We're back here with more of Soulivity today. That video was from the marvelous TED Talks with Sky Jarrett. Listen, we're talking today about how to find joy during times of grief. I've got some very special hosts with me that are perfect to talk about this. Halina Goldstein, co-founder of the Joy Keepers Network, and Sheila Applegate, host of Consciously Awesome Living. I just love what she's talking about, that she's going through this process, and she's just letting people know that joy is a part of this, and that joy is I would say joy is a key part, right?
Mm-hmm.
In unlocking the fullness of what we're supposed to experience in grief. Um, um, and I wanted to play that specific video because it's a step into understanding more about how joy can support us in the grieving and healing process. And what'd you think, Sheila? What'd you think of what Sky had to say?
Well, I thought it was excellent. In fact, having been trained as a psychotherapist and the 5 stages of grief, which then went out into the mainstream and it got interpreted differently, as in that it's some sort of linear process that we all have to check off. I liked these, was it 4 or 5 points instead? Not that those aren't true from a clinical side, the 5 stages of grief, but for us to focus on these 5 points. And I loved that she's acknowledging that it's it doesn't go away, because every once in a while something triggers me and I'm going to grieve someone from early on.
Right.
My sister brought in a letter she wrote to the pediatrician. Her son died at 18 months, and the pediatrician is retiring, and she just wrote this letter and brought it in over the weekend for me to read, and I was in tears, and that was 18 years ago, so, or 19 more now, I guess. 20 years ago. So it's gonna pop up, and we have to just be okay, and then we move on into the life that we're living in this moment.
Right. Halina, one of the things that I love that when she was talking about her grieving and healing process and how she added joy to it, that she just didn't block out people who died. She included other important parts of her life where she had to go through this grieving process. She lost, her marriage ended. She lost her job, right? These are major points where we put a lot of energy into, and when we have to let them go and move into grief, it's important for us to also experience joy and understand that this is a fluid process, and that years from now, you're going to think about that job that you lost. Even though you might have something better today, it might pop up, right?
Mm-hmm. And it also might not. So now,
right.
Because I said something before about speaking your truth, and now I'm being called to do so.
Go for it. Go for it.
So
absolutely.
I think it's really important that there's an openness to grief being a like waves that come back. And I've heard of priests, rabbis, therapists that say this will never go away. And it may be so, and it may be not so. So I have plenty of experiences where it's not so. And I don't think it's because I've shut it down, because that's not how I work. So I think it's really, the key to it is maybe not to say it will stop or it will not stop, but to say be open. Because I've also seen the opposite. I've seen people who start on a grieving journey, and then someone tells them, this will never go away. What a beginning of a journey. It will never end. But it may or may not be true. And it may change. And what is grieved today and what is grieved in 10 years is a completely different thing. So my invitation and prayer is to let's be open to how it unfolds. Let's not define the length and the quality and how it feels, but let's be open to it, which is important in our society too, right? To really create an openness to all aspects of it and all versions of it.
I love that, because part of my upbringing was the thought that as you're going through we're grieving this was specifically about grieving the transition or passing of a loved one, where over time, what happens is you only have really, really joyful thoughts about that person.
Yeah.
That whatever pain that you're experiencing, whatever misery you have, and that you can't physically be with that person anymore, what happens is that all that energy transmutes into all the beautiful thoughts and memories of yesteryear, and if you're open, that person is with you today and supporting you today as you take steps into your future, especially when there's times of challenge. That person is with you, and you feel kind of like, I know in the African American community, we talk about standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, right? Well, that's part of that process, right? I'm getting a little emotional as I think about it, right? Where we're literally standing on those shoulders, and they're proud to stand with back straight and support us through anything. And what a joyful feeling that is, right? When you have all these people that are like lifting you up and saying you can do and be and accomplish anything, right? Man, want to continue talking about this, but we got to take a quick break. Listen, we're just going to take this quick commercial break. We're going to talk more about this part of the process, but stay tuned because we got even more coming up here on Soulivity today.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
And we're back with more of Soulivity today with my very special co-hosts, Halina Goldstein and Sheila Applegate. We're just talking about joy and how it can support the grieving and healing process. Another continuation from this, ladies, I think, is when it all comes together, right? I kind of alluded to that in the last segment around us standing on the shoulders, where in the African American community there's this, and actually indigenous as well, where you have this feeling that you have complete support of everyone that has passed on, and that they're with you, and that they're with you in this energetic kind of field of love and support and celebration and that kind of thing. Can you, in your own words, kind of talk about that in your own life, how all that kind of came together for you, and if it did, or if you're still going through a process? And I'll go with you, Halina, first.
Well, I am reminded of the most recent experience for me personally. Was when a friend of mine lost her husband of many years, and I went to the funeral. And this man wasn't especially religious, and it was a tough ending. It was very hard physically. He was very ill. And what I experienced from within, that as soon as he transitions, there was so much joy around his energy. It was unbelievable. It was like he woke up to his essence. It was like shining, and it was just amazing. And it was like really, it felt almost like I wasn't very close to him. I was close to his wife, but it was like he was communicating this to me. And I went to the funeral, and there it came together, because he kept like sharing and shining this joy like a sun of its own. And at the same time, I saw his family, his wonderful family. Really, there's so much love in this family, and they were really grieving and crying and grieving and crying. And it was all so beautiful. I didn't have any need to tell them at this point, he's enjoyed this, everything's all right. Nothing was wrong. Everything was perfect. And it all kind of melted together, the tears and the joy. It was so beautiful.
Wow.
That's gorgeous.
Well, I mean, I mean, Sheila, I mean, I could see that. As Halina, you were talking about, I could literally see it and feel it. Wow, that's amazing. Sheila, what about you? How have you experienced where all of this kind of comes together? Right.
Well, it's my career. So
Mm.
helping people to communicate with their loved ones who've crossed over is one of my biggest passions. And I think it is because it's something that helped me through some of the most traumatic deaths. And it's always been pretty natural to me. And like I say, in my fortunate childhood, you know, it was my mom was very open that when her father died, my grandfather, he came to visit her in her bedroom one night when she was falling asleep. And so that openness to continue the relationship with our loved ones who've crossed over is so, in my opinion, essential. And whatever form that you want, because we go from the extreme of how I experience it, where we can continue this relationship with the soul of the loved one who's crossed over, to one of my favorite comedians, though it may seem odd, is Ricky Gervais. And he completely believes that you just move into nature and that there is no afterlife, though he has a great series called Afterlife.
Right.
But but you know what? We come to the same conclusion because he finds happiness and peace in knowing that we are all part of Gaia. And so whatever you perceive, however that life continues for you, the openness to let it keep growing and transition into that new relationship is so essential, I think, to really, in my opinion, when we can do that, we can love bigger with those who are alive on earth with us too, because we're not constantly guarding ourselves for the time when we will lose them.
You know, thank you for that, Sheila. I mean, man, as both of you were talking, I was thinking about this. And it's another part of grieving that again, we don't talk about because society tells us we're not supposed to do this. Sometimes, even before a loved one passes, we go into a grieving process because we can energetically feel that they are preparing themselves, right? Because like I knew my father, I knew my grandfather, my grandmother, my father, my other grandparents. I energetically knew and felt intuitively they were ready, right? They were preparing, they were either ready or they're preparing themselves to go on the other side of the veil. And you get some feels about that.
Right. Yeah.
What do you say? Is it okay? I know the answer to this, but I want to know your answers. Is it okay for us to start grieving and bringing joy into that process, even while that person is physically here? Halina, I'll go to you for that one.
Well, you know the answer. Yes, it is okay. And I also see how it is a delicate balance, because there is a beauty with sharing that grief with the person who is on their way out of the door, so to speak. But sometimes they also need support to not go there, to not see your grief, to not be confronted. So I guess the answer is, what will love do? Part of it, you can always do it with yourself, always, and create space for grieving. Do not only be to support for the other person, but give yourself space to grieve when grief comes to you. But otherwise, maybe there is again a delicate balance and challenge. How do we do that?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an answer, but this is reality, isn't it?
Yeah, Sheila, I think that's an honest answer, right? I mean, our feelings are our feelings, right? We can't shut them off. And so, like, the waves hit, and so you surf You start surfing, or
Right.
you learn how to surf.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's body surfing, right? But you do the best that you can.
Yeah. I'm thinking with my parents who died of dementia and Alzheimer's, that process was years and years. And it was, 1,000 deaths and 1,000 rebirths during
Right.
those years. And it was beautiful and painful and joyful, it was all of that. And I still
Absolutely.
grieved when they actually left their body. There was a new level of grief. And then that was releasing all of the pain of the years of that long transition too.
Right. Wow, ladies. Man, this is just such a great show today. Thank you for your words and your wisdom around this. I think what we'll do is we'll just take a quick break. And what we'll do is we'll take that break and we'll come back and we'll have some quick final thoughts from both our co-hosts today. Maybe something from myself as well. And we'll be back with more of Soulivity today.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame, living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
And we're back with more of Soulivity today. We got some final thoughts. And Halina, I'll go to you. We got about 30 seconds for each of you.
I came to think of that there are two processes or two journeys that were my greatest teachers of what it means to feel whole and what it means to feel at home. And one of them was grief and the other is joy. Truly.
Wow. Wow.
That's beautiful.
Wow. Yeah. Sheila?
My last thought is that sometimes the joy is simply savoring the grief and the sadness, and it's okay to rest into it and actually feel a sense of satisfaction and joy in the gift of being there.
Right. I'll say ditto to both of you in terms of my final thoughts. And what I'll say to all of you is, in addition to those, remember, there is no manual, there is no practice, there is no how to grieve, right? You're going to hear people say a whole lot of stuff that doesn't make sense to you and doesn't resonate with how you're grieving. But remember that it's messy, it's complex, and it's also beautiful. So just allow yourself to go through it the way that you need to go through it, and learn from it and learn about yourself and what you're capable of, right? In terms of just feeling and moving on, and honoring whatever the situation may be. May it be a loved one, a job, a relationship, whatever's ending, that you honor that in the way that you need to honor it as it ends. So, great show again. Wow, I'm glad we had this subject. While we move on to some shameless plugs, and Sheila, I'll go to you first. You've got some fantastic things happening around here.
Well, I think that I do, right? I think the most important thing to mention today would be the soul connection sessions, because they're ideal for you if you are in the process of grieving, whether it's a loved one who's in transition or has transitioned to the next phase beyond physicality, and you would like to establish or strengthen your new relationship with them now that they're in a new frequency, a new vibration, a new way of being, whatever your belief is. A soul connection session is a perfect way for you to connect to them and also learn how to carry that relationship forward. And because you're here at Soulivity today, use the code SOUL23 and you'll get $44 off that session, which you can find at my website, SheilaApplegate.com.
Perfect. And Halina, we've got another fantastic Joy Keepers coming up, right?
Yes, we do. And I'm actually reminded that pretty much every time we have a cafe and different people come, there's always someone who's in the process of grief, and comes there to invite joy. And so know that you won't be alone if you come there. And but just to describe it shortly, so these are these meetings that we have on Zoom once per month, and we chat with each other, we connect with each other. Then we have a beautiful meditation that Sheila leads, where we really connect deeply with joy and each other and the world, have a profound experience of it, which then resonates for days in my experience. And after that, we chat again and share our experiences even deeper in words and in smiles and in conversations. And next time is 2 weeks from now, September 27th. And you can register at joykeepers.org/cafe.
Yeah, and we put the link in our chat so that everybody can learn more about the Joy Keepers network as a whole, but also reserve a seat for the 27th. It's fabulous. It's really, really wonderful. It's a wonderful way to spend an hour of your day on the 27th that will reverberate over and over and over and over and over again. So ladies, thanks to both of you for being here. Listen, we're coming up on the end of our show. So thanks to both of you for being here. Listen, I just want to say thank you for being here as well, for joining us for another Soulivity today. We're on every Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern on Soulivity TV, or you can catch us at 8 a.m. Pacific time on KMET 1490 AM radio. Until next time, keep on having a fantastic time learning about your passion and purpose so you can create a higher quality life, your best life of high quality living today. See you next time.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.